The storm had swallowed the valley whole. Wind tore across the open plains of Mason Ridge, slamming against the battered porch where a woman stood barefoot, clutching a ledger to her chest as if it were armor. Lantern light flickered behind her, trembling in the cold. Her breath came fast. Her pulse came faster. And the tall, broad-shouldered man riding toward her didn't slow. His horse kicked up dirt. His coat snapped in the wind. The brim of his hat hid everything except the hard line of his jaw. Harlan Boyd, the richest cattleman in 3 counties. A man whose name could quiet a saloon faster than gunfire. He stopped 10 feet from her door. The storm howled between them. "You know why I'm here," he said quietly. Her fingers tightened around the ledger. She'd known this day would come, but she'd hoped, foolishly, that the debt her brother left behind might somehow disappear if she worked hard enough. If she believed hard enough. "You're not taking this house," she whispered. "No," he said, swinging down from the saddle. His boots hit the ground. Slow. Final. "I came for you." She froze. Her heartbeat stuttered. Then his voice cut through the storm. "You're coming with me." Why? For what price? And what fate waited on his ranch miles from any help? The wind swallowed her breath as the world began to tilt. The storm hammered the valley like fists on a coffin lid. Nora Alder pushed the door open a little wider, bracing her shoulder against it as if her slight weight could hold back the world outside. Snow swirled across the porch in pale sheets. The sky hung low and bruised, more winter than spring. Her voice shook as she called out, "This isn't a good night for business, Mr. Boyd." Harlan Boyd didn't flinch. He stood still as carved stone, rain sliding off the brim of his hat, coat dark from wet and mud. Even in the storm, the air around him seemed to bend. Men like him carried a gravity that pulled others into their shadow. Nora swallowed hard. She'd met Harlan Boyd once before. Briefly. Years ago. He'd been polite but distant. Handsome in that hard, unreachable way. A man whose life ran on numbers and cattle, not on softness. Nothing in him had looked cruel then. But tonight, he looked like a man who finished what he came for. "You knew this moment was coming," Harlan said, his voice steady despite the storm. Nora clutched the ledger tighter. The brown leather was cracked from years of her brother's careless hands. The ink inside told the story of a debt that had grown like weeds, interest upon interest, mistake upon mistake. Her brother Elijah had always been a dreamer, a charmer, a disaster. And when he died last winter, the debt didn't die with him. It landed on her doorstep, heavy as stone. "I can work off what I owe," Nora said. "Just give me time." "You've had time. Then I'll sell what I can." "There's nothing left to sell." His gaze drifted past her shoulder into the dim glow of the little farmhouse behind her. The scraped bare table, the patched curtains, the one aging milk cow huddled in the shed. "He left you nothing," Harlan said quietly. "He left me the house." He shook his head once. "The land is mine until the debt is paid." Her stomach twisted. "You won't take my home." "I'm not here to take your home." Lightning cracked overhead, turning the sky white for an instant. Nora's breath hitched. Harlan stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the rain on his coat, see the rough stubble along his jaw. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to keep her eyes on his. "I'm here," he said, "to take you." The word struck like a blow. Nora stumbled back a half step. "What did you just say?" "My household is short a cook, a housekeeper, and someone to help with my niece. I'm not for hire." "This isn't hiring." His voice softened, not with kindness, but with something she couldn't read. "You need shelter. You need income. I need someone trustworthy under my roof." He paused, eyes searching hers. "And you know the debt's too large for wages alone." Nora's breath came thin and sharp. "What exactly are you asking?" "A marriage of necessity," Harlan said. Her knees nearly buckled. "No," she whispered. "I know, absolutely not. I'm not asking for romance. Only partnership, protection, stability, for both of us." "What kind of protection requires trapping a woman under your roof?" His jaw tightened, and something old, something wounded flickered in his eyes. "You think I'd harm you?" "I don't know you," she shot back. "Then know this. His voice dropped lower. If I wanted your property, I'd have taken it already. If I wanted revenge for Elijah's mistakes, I'd have come long before tonight. She swallowed hard. So why now? Because I rode past your place yesterday morning, he said quietly, and saw a man circling your land. A drifter, not one with good intentions. Nora's blood ran cold. He continued. He saw you through the window, and he saw that you're alone. Her heart thudded. You expect me to believe you came to save me? No, I expect you to understand the danger. His voice lowered. A woman alone in the valley is a target. Lightning flashed again. Thunder shook the porch. Nora's fingers dug into the ledger until her knuckles whitened. I can take care of myself. You shouldn't have to. She blinked. The storm screamed across the fields. Snow whipped sideways. Harlan's coat snapped like a flag in the wind. He stood unshaken, as if storms bent around him rather than touched him. Nora, he said, voice steady, your brother owed me more money than you could repay in 10 lifetimes. I'm willing to erase it. Completely. Her breath stalled. In exchange, he said, you come with me. Tonight. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She took a step backward into the doorway, into the safety of her sleeve, felt her knees wobble. He lowered his voice. You don't have to fear me. I don't, she whispered. But the truth was more complicated. She feared the world outside far more. A window pane cracked. Both of them jerked toward the sound. Harlan moved in front of her instinctively. Stay behind me. Nora clutched the back of a chair hard enough to hurt. Outside, low voices murmured through the storm. Men. Multiple. One laughing. She felt sick. Harlan leaned close, speaking just above a whisper. I could get you out of here alive. But I need your answer now. Her throat tightened. Harlan, a fist slammed against the back door. Nora gasped. Harlan grabbed her wrist, not roughly, but firmly, and pulled her toward the stairs. Come on. Through the loft. Out the back window. But the storm won't kill you. And if I stay, the men outside will. Her heart pounded. They reached the bottom of the stairs. Harlan turned to her, breath sharp from adrenaline. Say it, he said softly. Say you're coming with me. Nora's lips parted. Her world trembled. Her future hung by a thread. Then, another crash outside, and her decision tore itself from her chest. Nora didn't remember choosing the words. They ripped out of her like a gasp, born of terror, instinct, and a strange trust she didn't want to examine too closely. I'm coming, she whispered. Harlan didn't pause. He didn't smile. He didn't react like a man who just won anything. He simply tightened his grip around her wrist, not painful, just sure, and pulled her up the stairs as the back door shook under another pounding blow. The storm howled through the rafters. Snow slipped between the weatherboards, dancing in pale streaks through the dimness. Nora's breath fogged in front of her face as they reached the loft. The small window at the far end rattled from the wind. Harlan shoved it open with his shoulder. A blast of freezing air slapped Nora across the cheeks, stinging like cold fire. Harlan, she panted, we'll freeze. We won't be out there long. He waited, let her duck through first. The icy air bit at her arms as she crawled out onto the slanted roof, her skirt flapping around her legs like a tattered flag. Harlan followed, closing the window behind them just as the back door splintered. For a moment they crouched together on the roof, snow whipping past their faces, breath coming fast. Below them, heavy boots stomped inside the house. Nora flinched. What if they come up here? They won't, Harlan murmured. Men like that look for whiskey, rifles, money, not rooftops. He pointed toward the barn, barely visible through the storm. We get to my horse. We're safe. Safe. Nora's laugh was hollow. In this weather? Safer than letting them find you. He slid down the roof first, landing in a drift of snow with a dull thud. Nora hesitated at the edge, trembling. He looked up, hand outstretched. I've got you. Her breath shook. Trusting a stranger was one thing. Jumping into a storm at night, because he told her it was something else entirely. But men were inside her home, armed, laughing, hunting. She took a breath, shut her eyes tight, and slid. Harlan sighed. Honey, we talked about this. Nora warmed instantly to the tenderness in his voice. Not forced, not performative. Real. I'll help her, Nora said. Harlan gave her a look, not questioning, not doubting. More like gratitude wrapped in caution. Warm water basin is in the kitchen, he said. June's eyes widened with sudden panic, and she grabbed Nora's hand again. She wants you, Harlan murmured. Nora's breath shivered. Then I'll stay with her, she whispered. The kitchen was warm, brighter than the front room. Copper pots shone beside the stove. A kettle hissed with steam. The table was cluttered with jars of herbs, folded linens, and tools that suggested Harlan had tried tending to June on his own, and tried hard. Nora filled a basin with warm water and set it on a stool. June sat on the edge of the table, silent, watching every move Nora made, as if memorizing her. Let me see your feet, sweetheart. Slowly, June lifted her legs. Her feet were red, stiff from cold. Nora washed them gently, careful not to startle her. June didn't look away. Not once. When Nora finished, she wrapped her feet in a towel and murmured, There, all better. June leaned forward and hugged her, small arms around Nora's neck, face buried against her collar. Nora froze. Not from fear, from heartbreak. Very slowly, she wrapped her arms around the child in return. A quiet sound escaped Harlan, something like relief, something like awe, as he leaned in the doorway. She hasn't hugged anyone since her mother died, he said. Nora's breath caught. Oh God, that explained everything. June's silence, her fear, her watchfulness, her longing. Nora brushed a hand over June's hair, the way a mother might. No, Nora, she scolded herself. Don't think like that. Don't attach meanings that aren't meant for you. But June trembled against her, and Nora's chest ached. What happened to her mother? Nora whispered, not looking at Harlan. He exhaled slowly. Fever took my sister-in-law a year ago. My brother died 2 months later. Whiskey did what grief didn't. Nora closed her eyes briefly. I'm sorry, she whispered. Harlan nodded once. We all are. June hugged tighter. Nora swallowed. Does she never speak? She used to, Harlan murmured. When she was small. She hasn't said a word since the night her mother died. Nora pressed her cheek against June's hair. Poor little thing. June made a soft whimpering sound. Not words, but longing. Nora held her. Gentle, steady, alive with emotion she tried to suppress. And in that moment, something reshaped inside her. Quiet, fragile, but undeniable. This child wasn't a duty. She wasn't a debt. She wasn't a condition of marriage or a responsibility assigned. June was a little girl who had been drowning in silence for months, and had reached for Nora the moment she appeared. Nora felt in her bones. June needs me. And strangely, I need her too. Harlan cleared his throat softly. We should talk. Nora lifted her head, still holding June close. About what? About the arrangement. Her stomach twisted. June clung tighter, as if she understood. Harlan motioned her toward the parlor. Come sit. When she's ready, she'll follow. Nora carefully set June down. The girl didn't let go until the last possible moment. Then she reluctantly climbed off the table and stood beside the stove, watching Nora leave the kitchen. Nora followed Harlan into the front room. He gestured toward the long settee. She sat, hands folded tightly. He remained standing, pacing once before speaking. I'm going to be direct, he said, because we don't have the luxury of time. Nora nodded. Tonight could have ended differently for you, he continued. You know that. Her fingers trembled. Yes. You can't go back to that house, Harlan said softly, voice edged with something that sounded like guilt. Not until those men are either caught or gone. I know, and I won't let you stay there alone. Not again. She swallowed. I understand. He stopped pacing, looked at her, really looked. Nora, my proposal wasn't only about the debt. Her breath stilled. June needs stability, he said. Routine, a woman's presence. Not hired help that might come and go. Someone she can attach to without fear they'll disappear after a season. And you think that person is me? Nora whispered. Yes, he said without hesitation. You barely know me. I know enough. Nora looked away. Her hands twisted in her skirt. It's not a contract. It's not business. It's a vow," he finished. "I know that. And I'm not asking you for love. Or for anything you don't freely give." Her pulse jumped. "Then what are you asking?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "A home. For June. For you. For me." Nora stared at him. "I would protect you," he said quietly. "Provide for you. Give you a place that's yours. A name that shields you from nights like this one." Her eyes burned. "And in return," he continued, "you give June what she's been starving for." "What's that?" Nora whispered. Harlan's voice softened. "Warmth. Kindness. A woman's heart in the house again." Nora blinked back tears. "This isn't what you planned," he said gently. "I know that." "No," she whispered. "It isn't. Your brother put you in an impossible place. I'm offering you a way out, but the choice is yours." Nora's voice wavered. "And what if I can't be what she needs?" "You already are." Her breath hitched painfully. He spoke even quieter. "And what if I can't be what you need?" Nora's heart slammed against her ribs. "I'm not expecting perfection," Harlan murmured. "Just honesty. Just presence. Just effort." She bit her lip. "A marriage of effort. It's more than most start with." The fire popped in the silence. Boots scuffed softly. Nora turned. June stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes fixed on Nora and Nora alone. The girl took 2 steps forward, then another, and then she climbed onto the settee beside Nora, curling in her side as if she'd done it 100 times. Harlan watched quietly. "She's choosing again," he whispered. Nora stroked June's hair. "I don't want to hurt her," she said, tears slipping free. "Or confuse her. Or make promises I can't keep." "Then don't promise yet," Harlan replied. "Not until you're ready." June lifted her head, looked into Nora's eyes, and whispered a sound, a breath, a tiny, cracked voice and used for so long it trembled in the air. "And Mama." Nora's heart stopped. Harlan froze. June's face crumpled. She clutched Nora's dress with both hands, burying her face against her stomach, sobbing silently, shoulders shaking with pent-up grief. Nora's arms wrapped around her instantly. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, rocking her gently. "I'm here. I'm right here." Harlan's eyes glistened. "She hasn't tried to speak in almost a year," he said, voice breaking. June's trembling fingers gripped Nora tighter. Nora looked up at Harlan, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What do I do?" she whispered helplessly. "You stay," he said quietly. "At least for now." June's sobs quieted as she held onto Nora, clinging with the desperation of a child who finally found something she'd lost long ago. Nora kissed her hair, her voice soft with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "I'm not leaving you," she whispered. "I promise." June relaxed in her arms, and Harlan closed his eyes, not in relief, but in something like hope. Outside, the storm finally began to break. But inside, something far larger had just begun. The storm died sometime after midnight, leaving a world washed clean and unervingly quiet. The heavy wind settled into a soft hush, like the land itself was holding its breath. Nora didn't sleep. June lay curled against her, small breath warm against Nora's arm. The girl had cried herself out, clung to Nora until exhaustion pulled her under, and whispered that single, shattering word before sleep claimed her again. "Mama." Nora stroked June's hair in slow, tender motions. Not because she was trying to comfort the child, but because the child had cracked something open inside her, something she'd thought long buried, something she didn't know she could feel again. Nora had never been a mother. She'd never held a baby of her own, never tucked a toddler into bed, never whispered lullabies in a darkened room. But holding June now, feeling June trust her, reach for her, cling to her, it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. It felt like purpose. It felt like belonging. Harlan sat in the chair near the fire. He hadn't slept either. His elbows rested on his knees, head lowered slightly as if deep in thought. The fire cast warm light across his face, softening the lines that usually stayed tense and guarded. His bandaged shoulder glowed amber in the firelight. He looked like a man carrying more weight than he allowed A small gesture, but steadied him. Failures don't define us, she whispered. He looked up sharply. You believe that? She nodded. Because if I didn't, I don't think I'd be sitting here. He stared at her for a long moment. Long enough that Nora felt her pulse quicken. Before either could say another word, a soft sound drifted from the doorway. June. She stood wrapped in the quilt, rubbing one eye with her fist. She saw Nora and walked straight to her. Nora lifted her into her lap without thinking. You hungry, sweetheart? She murmured. June nodded once. Harlan watched the exchange with an expression Nora couldn't quite read. Hope, fear, gratitude, all tangled together. Breakfast was quiet but warm. June stayed pressed to Nora's side, eating slowly, as if afraid the moment might disappear if she moved too fast. After they finished, Harlan stood. Nora, we need to talk business for a moment. Her stomach tightened. About the debt. About your safety, he corrected. She stilled. I'm going to town today, Harlan said. The sheriff needs to hear what happened. Those men won't stop on their own. Nora shook her head sharply. No, you're wounded. You need rest. I'll manage. And leave me here alone? Her voice trembled without permission. What if they come back? What if you won't be alone? He pointed toward the door. Ryder'll be here any minute. Your ranch hand. One of them. He's reliable. And he'll stay armed. Nora held June closer. Harlan softened. I wouldn't leave you two unprotected, he said. Not after last night. Then take us with you, Nora said. He froze. Into town? Yes. I can't stay locked in this ranch waiting for something to happen. The unknown is worse than the danger. It was the truth. She had been powerless for so long, controlled by her brother's debts, by fear, by desperation, that the thought of sitting idle now felt unbearable. Harlan hesitated. June tugged Nora's sleeve. She lifted her chin and whispered, barely audible. Stay with you. Harlan exhaled slowly. Decision made. All right, he said softly. We ride together. By the time Ryder arrived, the sun had melted the worst of the snow. The ranch hand, a lean fellow with sandy hair and a quiet smile, tipped his hat politely at Nora and June. Ma'am, little one. June peeked at him from behind Nora's skirt and gave the tiniest nod. Nora smiled. Ryder grinned at Harlan. She's got more courage than half the men in town. Most children do, Nora said softly. Harlan saddled the horses himself, despite his bandaged shoulder. Nora approached him quietly. You don't have to do it alone, she said. He paused mid-cinch. I don't know how not to, he murmured. Nora took the strap gently from his hand and finished tightening it. His breath hitched. A simple act, but no woman had stood this close to him since tragedy stole his family. He wasn't sure he deserved the feeling rising in his chest. Connection, belonging, possibility. When the horses were ready, Harlan lifted June onto Nora's mount, then helped Nora into the saddle. He mounted behind them. Close, steady, warm. His arms slid naturally around Nora's waist to secure June between them. Nora inhaled sharply. He felt it, but neither pulled away. The ride into town was quiet. The snow sparkled across the plains like scattered silver. A soft breeze carried the scent of pine and thawing earth. The world looked new, washed clean by the night storm. June leaned against Nora's chest, relaxed and trusting. Harlan's hand remained firm on Nora's hip, steadying all three of them. It was intimate, not romantic, not yet. Something deeper. Shared survival, shared purpose, shared breath. Halfway to town, Nora spoke softly. Harlan, do people in town know why June stopped speaking? No, and I won't let them gossip about her. Good. He glanced at her profile. What about you? He asked. What story would they tell about you? Nora looked ahead, jaw tightening. The truth, she whispered, that I was born into the wrong family, with the wrong brother in the wrong life. Harlan's hand tightened slightly. Not anymore. She swallowed. No, she whispered. Not anymore. They reached town by late morning. Folks watched as the trio rode in. Some curious, some suspicious, some openly whispering. Harlan ignored every stare. Nora lifted her chin. June clung to her. Harlan dismounted first, then helped them down. Come to the sheriff's office with me, he said quietly. I won't leave you out here alone. Ryder dismounted too. I'll keep an eye out. They crossed the street together. Harlan's hand on Nora's back. June's hand in Nora's. The sheriff looked up the moment they entered. Boyd, Mississippi. Sheriff, Harlan said, voice steady. We got trouble. The sheriff listened quietly as Harlan recounted the night. The intruders, the gunfire, the chase. When he finished, the sheriff leaned back, eyes narrowed. That's not the first report like this, he said. 2 ranches south of here had men lurking around their property last week. Harlan stiffened. Same men. Could be. Sheriff, Nora said softly. Do you know what they want? He rubbed his jaw. Protection money. Or they want to scare folks into leaving their land. Hard to tell with men like that. June pressed against Nora's side. Nora wrapped an arm around her. The sheriff sighed. I'll send men out to check your property, Boyd. But truth is, they're hitting places where folks are vulnerable. Harlan's jaw tightened. And you're saying we look vulnerable? I'm saying they think you are. Silence fell heavy. Nora's pulse hammered. These men saw me, she whispered. They might come for me again. Harlan stepped closer. They won't. You can't promise. Yes, he interrupted quietly. I can. The sheriff cleared his throat. There's more. Harlan turned. What? Your brother, the sheriff said to Nora. Walt Carver. Nora froze. Harlan went still. What about him? Harlan asked tightly. The sheriff folded his hands. He's missing. Nora felt the room tilt. What do you mean missing? Left town 2 days ago, the sheriff said. Word is he owes money to the wrong kind of man. Nora's knees buckled. Harlan caught her arm. The sheriff continued. And they might think you know where he is. Nora's breath shattered. Harlan's grip tightened protectively. June clung to Nora's skirt. The sheriff looked between them, expression grave. I think the 3 of you are in a lot more danger than you realize. Nora stared at him, voice barely a whisper. What do we do now? Harlan answered before the sheriff could. His voice low. Steady. Certain. You come back with me, he said. Both of you. Nora met his eyes. Her fear met his resolve. Her fragility met his vow. Harlan, she whispered. You're not facing this alone, he said. Not anymore. He placed his hat back on his head and turned toward the door. We go home, he said quietly. And we prepare. For what? The sheriff answered that, voice grim. For a storm a whole lot worse than last night's. The storm eased by morning, but the cold lingered, clinging to the ranch like a memory that refused to die. Nora woke to soft light spilling through the window and the warmth of a heavy quilt wrapped around her. For the first time since Elijah's men had come, she felt something close to safe. Her body still trembled with leftover fear, but her heartbeat had a calmer rhythm now, because she remembered the last thing from the night before. Harlan's voice at her bedside. Low, steady, protective. She remembered the way he looked at her, not with ownership, not with expectation, but with a quiet question he hadn't dared speak. She sat up slowly and touched her cheek. It still felt warm where his hand had rested. The thought flustered her, frightened her, but also softened her. A faint knock sounded at the door. Nora? You awake? His voice, deep and gentle. She pulled the quilt tighter around her shoulders. Yes, I'm up. The door cracked open. Harlan's broad frame filled the doorway, morning light outlining the shape of his coat and the warmth of his eyes. He didn't step in. He just looked at her, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them. You slept through sunup, he said, voice soft. Didn't want to wake you. I suppose I needed it, she murmured. You did. He cleared his throat, eyes shifting briefly to the floor. Breakfast is ready when you want it. She nodded, but neither of them moved. Silence tugged at the air between them, heavy, tender, and strangely intimate. Harlan finally rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly awkward for the first time since she'd met him. You look warm enough. Let me know if you need a thicker quilt. He stepped back to leave, but Nora's voice stopped him. Harlan, he turned. Thank you. For last night. For everything. His expression softened in a way she hadn't expected. You don't have to thank me, he said. Keeping you safe is my responsibility. Her heart fluttered. I didn't say you had to. I said I wanted to. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, then warmth, then something deeper. Something dangerous. Something that made her chest tighten. He held her gaze a second longer, then nodded once and closed the door behind him. When Nora came downstairs, the kitchen smelled of coffee, eggs, and wood smoke. June sat at the table, feet swinging above the floor as she drew small circles on a scrap of paper. The girl glanced up. Nora smiled gently. "Good morning, June." June stared a moment, then lifted a small folded piece of paper and slid it across the table. Nora hesitated, then opened it. It was a drawing, a shaky one, of Harlan, June, and Nora, 3 figures holding hands. Nora's throat tightened. "Sweetheart, did you draw this?" June looked down shyly, twisting her stuffed rabbit's ear. Harlan watched from the stove. He didn't smile, but his eyes warmed in a way that made Nora's chest ache. "She hasn't drawn herself with anyone in over a year," he said quietly. Nora swallowed hard. She didn't know how to feel. Overwhelmed, honored, terrified, grateful. June hopped off the chair and moved to Nora, slipping her small hand into Nora's like it belonged there. Nora felt herself melt. "Looks like she made up her mind," Harlan said softly behind her. Nora glanced at him. He wasn't talking about breakfast or drawings. He meant something bigger, something she wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. After breakfast, Harlan asked her to walk the property with him. The snow crunched under their boots. The air was sharp but clear, carrying the scent of pine and the quiet hum of distant cattle. Nora pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Harlan noticed and moved closer, subtle, unspoken, so his coat blocked the wind from her side. She pretended she didn't notice, but she warmed all the same. "We'll ride into town tomorrow," he said. "Talk to Sheriff O'Malley. Get you supplies. What about the men looking for me?" His jaw tightened. "Sheriff's keeping watch. And I've got men posted around the property." "That must be expensive," she murmured. His eyes slid to hers. "You're worth it." Nora stumbled a little. He caught her elbow, steadying her. "Careful." His hand lingered longer than it needed to. Too long. She pulled away softly, breath unsteady. "Harlan, why are you being so kind?" He stopped walking. The cold air seemed to still around them. "Nora," he said quietly, "I didn't bring you here because of some debt, or because I needed a wife to fill an empty place." She lifted her chin. "Then why?" His eyes traced her face slowly, reverently, as if memorizing every small detail. "Because when I saw you standing alone in that storm, I saw someone try her best to hold the world together, even when it hurt her. Someone who deserved better than what life gave her." Her breath shook. His voice lowered. "And because I haven't stopped thinking about you since." She felt like the wind had punched the air from her lungs. "Harlan, I don't know how to handle this." "You don't have to handle anything. Not today." His voice softened. "Just breathe." Her eyes burned. He took a slow step closer, not touching her, just near enough that she felt the warmth of him through the cold. "Nora," he murmured, "I'm not asking you for anything, but I need you to know something." She waited, heart pounding. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not from you. Not from June. Not from any future you choose." The words hit her like a soft blow. Painful, tender, dangerous. She looked up into his eyes and saw everything she thought he'd been holding back. Strength, loneliness, hope, and something that felt like a promise. She stepped back, overwhelmed. "I'm not ready. I know. I'm still scared. I know. I don't know who I am in your world." He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and brushed a snowflake from her cheek with a touch gentler than snow itself. "You're the woman I've been waiting a long time to meet," he said softly. "That's who you are." Her breath caught. The world seemed to tilt, and for one dizzying moment, she thought she would fall into him. But she held still, and he withdrew his hand, not pushing, not rushing her, only letting the warmth linger between them. "Come on," he said after a moment. "Let's get June. She's been wanting to show you her mother's old room." "Her mother's?" "Yeah." Nora hesitated. Will she mind if I see it?" A faint smile touched his lips. "She asked me if she could show it to you. That's the first request she's spoken in 6 months." Nora's heart clenched. They walked back toward the house. Harlan opened the door for her, not out of ownership, but out of quiet respect. She brushed past him. Her shoulder brushed his chest. He inhaled sharply, and for one brief heartbeat, they stood too near in the warm doorway, breath mingling in the cold light. Something electric passed between them, something that promised this story wasn't finished. Not even close. Inside, June waited with her stuffed rabbit clutched in both hands. When she saw Nora, she brightened. Not a smile, but something softer. Acceptance. She tugged Nora's sleeve and led her up the stairs. Harlan followed, watching with a look Nora had seen few men wear: hope. June stopped at a small door at the end of the hall. The wood was polished from years of careful touches. Her tiny fingers pushed it open. Inside was a simple room. Warm, sunlit, soft colors. A small rocking chair. An old quilt folded neatly at the foot of the bed. The air smelled faintly of lavender. Her mother kept it like this, Harlan whispered from behind her. She loved this room. June released Nora's sleeve long enough to sit on the rug and pat the space beside her. Nora knelt. The little girl leaned against her, head resting on Nora's arm. Nora froze. Harlan stood in the doorway, breath catching. His daughter had not leaned on anyone, not even him, since the night her parents died. Slowly, gently, Nora placed her hand over June's small fingers. June sighed softly, settled, safe, and something inside Harlan broke open. Nora looked up at him. His eyes glistened, with gratitude, with longing, with something far deeper, far more dangerous, far more real. They held each other's gaze, and in that moment, without a kiss, without a touch, without a single word, the bond between them deepened into something unshakable, something that would change everything, forever. The sun dipped low over the valley as evening settled in, turning the snow into a blanket of soft gold. Inside the ranch house, the fire crackled gently, filling the room with a warm glow. Nora sat beside June on the braided rug, helping the child braid her doll's yarn hair. Every now and then, June would peek up at her, quiet, curious, trusting. Harlan watched from the doorway, not intruding, just looking at the two people he cared for more than he had ever cared for anyone. A deep breath left him, almost silently. He knew then, his heart was no longer his own. He stepped into the room. Dinner's ready. June stood immediately and took Nora's hand. The simple gesture warmed the entire house. But before Nora could rise, Harlan gently touched her shoulder. "Stay a moment," he murmured. June trotted toward the kitchen with her doll. Nora turned to Harlan, pulse quickening. Something in his eyes had changed. Soft, sure, and afraid of nothing, not even the truth. She swallowed. "Is something wrong?" "No," he said, voice low. "But something needs saying. Something I can't hold in anymore." She rose to her feet slowly. "Harlan." But he stepped closer, not touching her, just close enough that the warmth from the fire caught the edge of his jaw, highlighting the strength of his expression. "You changed this house," he whispered. "You changed her, and you changed me." Her breath tangled in her chest. "You don't need to say this." "Yes," he murmured. "I do." He lifted a hand, but kept it inches from her cheek, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. "You didn't just save June," he said. "You brought life back into this place. Into both of us." Nora's voice shook. "Harlan, I'm still a stranger to your world." "You're not," he said softly. "Not anymore." He let his fingers graze her cheek. Light, careful, reverent. "You fit here," he whispered. "With her. With me." Her heart pulled tight. Fear and longing tangled together. "Harlan, you're asking for more than I know how to give." "I'm not asking for anything," he said. "Not tonight. Not tomorrow. But I need you to know what's true." He leaned slightly closer, and she could feel his breath against her skin. "I want you here," he whispered. "I want you with us. Not because of debt, not because of danger, but because you're the first person who's made this place feel like home again." Her eyes shimmered. She reached for the nearest chair to steady her trembling hand. "You barely know me. I know you enough," he said gently. "And what if I'm not who you think I am?" "Then I'll learn who you are," he said, "day by day." Her throat tightened. Harlan, I'm scared. So am I. He gave a small, almost broken smile. But some things are worth being scared for. She blinked hard, fighting tears. Before she could answer, the sharp sound of approaching hooves cracked through the quiet. Harlan froze. Nora stiffened. Is it Elijah's men? Stay here. His voice hardened. Do not move. June peeked around the corner, sensing danger. Nora scooped her up and held her close. Harlan stepped outside into the biting cold. The sky had turned indigo, and lantern light cast shadows over the fresh snow. A single rider approached. Sheriff O'Malley. Relief flickered, but only briefly. The sheriff's expression was grim. Harlan, he called out. We need to talk. What happened? The sheriff dismounted slowly. It's Elijah. He's dead. Nora's knees weakened. She nearly dropped to the floor. Harlan caught her before she fell, arms steady around her shoulders. Ow, he demanded. His own men turned on him, the sheriff said. Seems they didn't want the trouble he was dragging them into. Couldn't pay them neither. Nora covered her mouth, shaking. Elijah, oh God. He wasn't your burden to carry, miss, the sheriff said gently. Yes, he was, she whispered. He was my brother. Harlan's grip tightened. You're not alone in this. The sheriff continued. The men that came for you, they scattered. They're gone. You won't be hunted anymore. The words felt unreal. Nora swayed again, but Harlan held her upright. It's over, he said, voice low. You're safe. For the first time since the night he'd burst into her home, she believed him. Truly believed him. The sheriff tipped his hat and rode off, leaving the three of them standing in the snow, still quiet, wrapped in the shock of sudden freedom. Nora stared toward the dark horizon. Harlan watched her, waiting for the inevitable question. Now what? She turned to him, trembling. I don't know what to do now. You don't have to know, he said. Not tonight. But what happens next? She whispered. His hand slid slowly along her arm. Not pulling, not pushing, just anchoring her gently. What happens next, he said, is whatever you want. She swallowed hard, eyes shining. And what do you want, Harlan? He looked at her like the question broke something open inside him. I want you to stay. Her breath caught. He continued softly. I want you here when June wakes up. I want you at the table with us at breakfast. I want to look across this land and know you're part of it. And part of us. June tugged Nora's sleeve, eyes wide and hopeful. Nora knelt and brushed the child's hair back. Is that what you want too, sweetheart? June nodded, once firm. Nora's vision blurred with tears. She looked up at Harlan. His eyes weren't demanding. They were waiting. Patient. Uncertain. Hopeful. She stood slowly, snow swirling around her boots. She took one step toward him, then another. Then, she placed her hand against his chest, right over his heart. His breath hitched. Harlan, she whispered, voice trembling. I don't know if I can promise forever. You don't have to, but I can promise tonight. His eyes softened dangerously. And tomorrow, she whispered, if you'll have me. He took her hand in both of his. Nora, he said, voice thick, I'd take you in any way you came. Then, finally, she leaned into him. Not a kiss. Not yet. But the closeness of two people who had fought separate battles and were finally laying down their weapons. He wrapped an arm around her back, holding her gently, reverently, as though she were the most fragile and precious thing he had ever touched. June wrapped her small arms around them both. And for the first time in a very long time, Nora Alder felt like she belonged. Days later, Nora would officially say yes. Weeks later, she would become Nora Thorne. Months later, June would speak her first full sentence in almost a year. But this night, this one quiet night in the snow, with the storm behind them and the future ahead, this was where their story truly began. 3 souls, 1 home, and a life built not from debt, but from love. If you felt this tale in your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wild West Emotional Tales, where every story rides through the dust, the danger, and the kind of love that never dies. See you in the next tale. Partner.